you're somebody that I've admired for a while. Only because I'm a big boxing fan as it is, but I'm also a big health and wellness guy, which I'm sure you've noticed.
Yep.
And I see the work that you put in to health and wellness. And I always, with doing these podcasts, I'm always looking for something different. It's cool to just get a boxer or just get a basketball player or whoever, but then it's like, oh, I got the boxer that's also a nutritionist. You know what I mean? So it's humbling in that respect, man.
I'm happy to be here, brother.
Yeah. So just for those who may not know you, you are definitely, a tremendous figure in the boxing game. Still very relevant today in boxing, which is great. Now, it's very difficult to do for an extended period of time, as you may know. You have also been a kickboxer, I noticed, which is a world champion kickboxer, which is unbelievable. I can't wait to hear more about that. But you held the title in the WBO welterweight, right?
Junior welterweight or super lightweight, yeah.
You fought guys like Manny Pacquiao, Amir Khan, Errol Spence, to say some of the bigger names. Just talk to people quickly, man, about just your journey from, growing up to where you are today.
Yeah. So honestly, I knew I wanted to do and kind of set my goals about what I have done and accomplished in this sport, in these sports at a very young age. I was, even at the age of like 13, 14 years old, I'd gone to a few live kickboxing fights and I was like, man, I want to do that. And then I was training, I was in the gym. I had a few literally exhibition fights when I was 14 years old. And I decided that I was going to dedicate all of my extra energy outside of school to this. I wanted to be a world champion in kickboxing. I wanted to be a world champion in boxing. I had no other thoughts in my head other than accomplishing those goals. And I knew that it was just a matter of time. At first I set out, like you said, in kickboxing. Kickboxing is, it's an awesome sport. Unfortunately, it's not really a big deal here in this country. It's a very, very big deal in other countries, overseas in Europe, Canada. But really, I mean, across the world, it just never really took up here, especially once UFC came in and we have like MMA and boxing. People are pretty polarized in terms of being fans there. So there wasn't a whole lot of room in the middle for kickboxing, which eventually led to me switching over to boxing. I was a 2-time world champion kickboxer. I fought, I was 20-0, I was undefeated. I fought guys from literally all over the world because there's not that many kickboxers, high-level kickboxers in the States. So after I won my last world title, I was like, man, this sport is great, but it's dangerous. I'm getting hurt. I broke my elbow, I injured my knee. I've been dropped in a bunch of fights, gotten cut, gotten hurt before. Broke my nose a bunch of times. So I was like, I mean, I'm not getting any kind of money for this. I think my highest payday as a kickboxer was $3,000.
Oh, wow.
And I spent $1,500 of that renting a bus so my family could come to Atlantic City and everybody could see me win my last world title.
Wow.
So there was no money. The belts are cool and nice, whatever, but like that's I'm not risking my life and limb, for shiny belts.
Yeah.
So we ended up making a transition to boxing, and I just went full bore into that, and honestly, it came about because I had been sparring so many boxers as a kickboxer. Like I said, I was literally fighting guys from all over the world, and the level of kickboxing here on Long Island in New York and the States, relatively low compared to the world scale. Yeah. So in order to get proper sparring and training, I was going to Gleason's very often. I was going to New Jersey and Hoboken and Hackensack and sparring with all these different other fighters, Connecticut. And I was always just sparring with boxers. And at first I would do it barefoot, and I think I got made fun of it a little too much. So then I started wearing, sneakers and then wrestling shoes and whatnot. And I had more and more coaches tell me, man, you got a lot of boxer in you. At first I was the karate guy coming into the gym. Who's this guy coming here to come box? But then more and more, it became apparent that I was actually much more suited for boxing. And my mind worked better that way in that sport. And I had the tools that, would make for a successful boxer. I grew up watching boxing. I didn't grow up watching kickboxing. There was no kickboxing on TV. My grandfather's from Argentina, and the first sport I ever remember watching was boxing. And he was my hero. So my hero was telling me about his heroes. So for me, it was like, all right, man, the coolest guy I know talks about these guys like they're the coolest. So of course I want to be like that.
Yeah.
He always told me not to do it because of how dangerous the sport was. But you know, the seed was already planted.
Yeah. Now, do you feel like, and I noticed this from the little bit of kickboxing that I've watched. By the way, I'm a big fan of Bloodsport, which I'm sure you.
Van Damme.
Right.
That's my dude.
But the little I know about kickboxing is you have some guys that are much better, like boxers per se, and you have some guys that are just excellent, with their legs, with kicks. Were you one of those better boxer guys, you would say?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I was definitely better with my hands. I didn't have a jab to speak of because there's no jabbing in kickboxing really. It's so easy to strike underneath. It's not really it's a very underutilized weapon in kickboxing. There's just too many openings when you have legs that are so long. Guys can kick underneath. They can spin kicks, jump, side kicks, things like that. They're just too long. Steep kicks and catch that bottom rib. So there's very, very little jabbing. So I had no jab at all to speak of coming from my kickboxing. But for the most part, I use my kicks to get close enough so I could throw my hands.
Yeah.
And I was a good body puncher, which a lot of kickboxer guys are not used to. So I scored a ton of knockouts. I actually knocked out most people I fought in kickboxing. But yeah, no, I was definitely much more of a puncher than a boxer, than a kickboxer. And I always said, whenever I got in trouble in a kickboxing match, whether I got hurt, dropped, stunned, whatever, I always went back to my hands. So it was my hands that would get me out of trouble and not my legs. So I definitely think I was much more of a boxer even during my kickboxing time.
Yeah, and I noticed one of your signature moves, just because, again, I'm a big boxing fan and I've seen many of your fights, you like to throw a straight right, and then you go right to the left hand hook to the body.
Yep.
Like, you always do that. I always notice it. I'm like, oh, here it comes every time. And you're obviously pretty good at it because your hands are pretty fast, and you take really good angles with your boxing. I've always appreciated that about you.
I've just been a student of the game. Like I said, it's the first sport I've ever watched. I got my hands on a lot of tape of some of the greats of the game: Alexis Arguello, Sugar Ray Leonard, Oscar De La Hoya. They were the guys that I saw them, and those are the guys I wanted to model myself after. And not only because of their skills in the ring, because all three of them are very technical, right? Alexis Arguello was literally, this technique was perfect.
Yeah.
Sugar Ray Leonard, very, very technical, but also he was so athletic and he had hand speed. So I saw a little bit of that in myself. I'm an athletic guy. I've got that kind of movement and that kind of speed, a little different than Alexis, who had that killer power, which I never had. And then Oscar was kind of a good mix of that. He was athletic, but also super technical and very, very powerful. So, but also all three of them had such an amazing personality in the ring, out of the ring, and made incredible leaps and bounds and crossover appeal because of that. So they were absolute gentlemen outside of the ring and killers in the ring.
Yeah.
So for me, I was like, that's what being a champion is.
Yeah. Well, and you speak about being like outside of the ring. I notice you're like a superstar at the Barclays. Like, everyone loves when you fight at the Barclays. It's like, he's on the ticket. Like, that's always an amazing thing. What's your experiences there? How do you like fighting there?
Barclays is phenomenal. My last two fights are in the Garden, one in the little room, one in the big room. I fought in the Barclays Center, 4 or 5 times now.
Yeah.
And it's a tremendous, tremendous venue. I mean, in terms of what the fighter, what the athlete has available to them, the room size, the walkout, everything, it's probably the most seamless there is for fight sports. It's pretty tremendous. The Garden's the Garden, of course. I love fighting at the Garden, but Barclays has that just new, crisp feeling to it. Even in the back, in the guts of the building.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was a great experience just fighting over the Barclays. I love it there. I mean, any of the New York venues, the big ones, the Garden, Barclays, they're all tremendous.
Yeah. Yeah. At one point, I'm like, man, this guy always fights at Barclays. That's all he fights at. Yeah. But it's a great venue to fight at, like you said.
People always ask, where do you fight? I'm like, they like me in New York, so I mostly fight in New York.
It's your backyard. Why not, right?
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Yeah. So, speaking of that, so you've obviously so far have had a great career. You're still in your prime. Still a lot to look forward to. And you've had fights, like I said, with legends like Manny Pacquiao, guys like Amir Khan, up-and-coming guys like Errol Spence's, up on his way to, legendary status as well.
Yep.
What was that experience like for you fighting Manny Pacquiao?
That was, you said it perfectly. The word experience. People's like, what is what was that fight like? It's like, well, it was a whole experience because we went on a seven city world tour. We flew all over the world. The marketing, the promotion for that was absolutely, mind blowing. I went from in 2014, in February of 2014, fighting in literally my backyard in a venue of 1,000 people, which was my first TV fight on ESPN. To fighting at the Barclays Center versus Ruslan Provodnikov to win the title in front of 10,000 people, or 8,000 people, to fighting in Macau against an absolute living legend in Manny Pacquiao in front of 20,000 people, and millions when it comes to people watching on who weren't there. So absolutely, that 2014 was a crazy year. It was from 0 to 1,000. But I had a blast. It was the whole experience was tremendous. I always saw myself being world champion. I always saw myself being successful. I never thought about being like out in the public like that. I didn't realize, I didn't put that together that came together. So going out to dinner in New York City and getting stopped, coming out of a cab and asking for a photo, and people just saying, "Hey, Chris," like they know me for years, and I turn around like they are, and then it's just somebody who likes my fights, and that was really cool, but not something I was really prepared for at all. Never thought about it. It didn't come in my mind. I was like, I'm gonna be a world champion. I know it's gonna make me money, but like I want to be a world champion. So all the other stuff was that was interesting.
Yeah, I commend you for doing that too, because you were and you still are, but you were at a point in your career where you could have just took easy fight here, or quote unquote easy fight here.
Yeah.
Fought this guy, but you were like, no, let me get the top dog.
I've never been that guy. I fight everybody. I've always been that guy. I think that's part of why my popularity still exists to this day, because everybody knows I fight everybody. Like I don't turn down fights. I don't take the easy route. I never did, even on the way up, which is what prepared me to deal with the situations that I came across in the ring. I won my world title in one of the worst ways possible. I got injured immediately, broken orbital, first round, got dropped twice. It was pretty much, it may be historically the worst first round you could ever have.
Yeah,
in a world title winning effort. But I had been in tough fights already. I think a lot of the young guys now are brought up in a way where they avoid the tough fights. They avoid the tough guys. Like, ooh, that guy's got a style that won't really be that good, so we'll get the next guy. I never had a choice. They told me who I was fighting. I said, okay, this is my job. I'm a prize fighter. You tell me who I fight, and I fight them. So, for me, I think that really helped when the going got tough in the big fights.
Yeah, and that fight that you're talking about where you won your title, that's when I started taking notice. I'm like, this guy's tough, because you took a pound in that first round. And it took a lot of like mental fortitude and perseverance to come back and like put punches together the way that you did, focus in the way that you did, and win that fight. That was pretty amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I was mad at myself. I made a technical mistake, and I was dealing with a guy who was a hellacious puncher. And when you make mistakes in boxing, you pay for it. I paid for it for 11 and a half rounds and for the next couple months, because literally one punch, one mistake, I broke 3 bones in my eye. I broke my nose in 2 places. My eyes shut almost immediately. So it was one of those things where I was just like, man, like everybody asked, what were you thinking? And literally I was like, man, I cannot believe I got hit with that goddamn punch. It was just like that. I've been training not to do that. And I got greedy at one point, and just, that's it. You pay for your mistakes. That's what I love about boxing.
Yeah. But it was a learning experience for you, I'm sure. Yeah, it definitely made you a better fighter today. And that's an amazing thing. Now, like as I mentioned at the top of this, what makes you unique is you're someone that really, really takes nutrition, your body, wellness seriously, more than the average boxer. Notably, I saw that you help out Daniel Jacobs with his nutrition, right?
Yep. Daniel's my boy. I've known him for years. I did 5 full camps with Daniel.
Wow.
And I was literally with him.
I thought it was just for his last fight. Wow.
No. Triple G was when we started. We did Triple G. We did whose next fight was
Was it Canelo? Or no?
No, I did Canelo as well. We did Triple G, Luis Arias, the Polish fighter, very tough, very tough Polish kid, Derevyanchenko, and Canelo. So I've been with Danny, when he won his title against Derevyanchenko. I was with him when he fought Triple G, who's current, pretty much a living legend, and then he fought, Canelo, who is the top dog in the sport.
Yeah.
Danny's my boy. I've known Danny for so long, just from the boxing circuit. New York boxing at the elite levels is a very, very small community. And, we're all family. So when they gave me the call to see if I was, interested in helping him, I was like 100%, and the thing about working with someone, especially at that level, is I was with Danny every day for 2 months at a clip, multiple times a year. So it's like, you got to have some kind of personal relationship with somebody. It's not just a job. Cause I was waking him up and eating breakfast, and we were going on runs, and then we come back and it's like, here's your lunch, champ, get some rest and come back and check on him later. Like, all right, how you feeling? You hungry? All right, time to eat again. And it's like, all right, now we're going to the gym. I'm watching the sparring. And then it's like, we go home, take time for dinner. And then, it's like, it was like that for every day for months at a time. It was an incredible experience for me from the other side, from the coaching standpoint, to deal with, first of all, an athlete like Daniel, who is, he is just another level.
For people that don't know, Daniel beat cancer, came back and won the world title.
Yeah,
which is unbelievable.
It's boxing. Boxing's easy compared to what he's already been through.
Yeah.
But even aside from that, he's just such a tremendous athlete to work with. To see a guy like that who's able to do the things that he can do, it really is awe-inspiring at times. So that was a great experience for me from the coaching aspect, to work with an athlete of that level, and also I had control of everything that he ate. So he was almost like, he was my science experiment, see how he was going to respond to the way that we were doing this. I just used what I have always done. I've used what I've studied as having a master's degree in nutrition and being a clinical certified sports nutritionist. And I was always just trying to get the best things available for his body to recover and be to be what it is and reach your maximum potential. But it was tremendous to watch him through the camp and as he could just get better and better and better.
Yeah. Now, without telling your secrets, because I do the same thing. I work with, right now I have probably almost 200 clients nationwide that I work with.
Wow.
I structure the protocols for nutrition, supplementation, some training routines, stuff like that. So how did that look with him? Like, did you structure his macros? Did you have him on and again, I'm trying not to like open up secrets, but did you have him like on a like a macro cusp? How did that work out for you? How did you do it?
Yeah. So, sports nutrition, performance nutrition, I don't think of it as secrets. It's like you said, proteins, fats, and carbs, and what you do with them. But everyone's different, and this is the biggest thing I realized with an athlete like Daniel. Every athlete's different. For him, every camp was different. He was almost like a different guy. He would come to camp sometimes where he'd be heavy, and we had to work on kind of whittling him down. And then he came to cancer, he was actually really light, and I was like, we got to build him up first.
Now, what I found interesting, just speaking to that, I'm sorry, Triple G fight, he put on a ton of weight, right?
No, so that was the kind of HBO rhetoric about why Daniel. Okay. Yeah, that was very strange to me because
he didn't weigh in the night of, right? Wasn't it something like that?
Right, that was actually a team decision because he was going to be a little bit over, and Danny sleeps super late. Like he lives like a fighter. Main events you fight at midnight. His entire life is waking up very, very late, 11 a.m., 12, 1 p.m. So to wake him up at 6 a.m. to go put him on a scale, and even if he was like 2 pounds over, he's got to go make the weight. No, we're not doing that. We want him to win the fight.
Yeah.
So that was one of the belt's, organizational, stipends. It was dumb. There was no reason for it to do. I'm super against that rule, by the way. It's a plus 10 pound absolute number. Yeah. It's not a percentage. How can everyone gain 10 pounds?
Exactly.
112 pounder can gain 10 pounds, but a 190 pounder only gets 10 pounds too. So I was super adamant against that the entire time. And then when it came down to it, I'm like, listen, if he's a pound and a half overweight, which is nothing, he could literally make that in 30 minutes. Yeah. I'm like, I'm not doing that to him a fight day.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to wake him up at 5 a.m. when the guys used to waking up at noon, and we're going to go sweat him down. No, He's fighting one of the most dangerous guys in the world. Let him sleep. Let him be fully prepared. They were saying numbers like he was 190 pounds, this and that. I have never seen Danny over 180 pounds ever. He's never come to camp heavier than that. And to me, when he comes to that, like that, I'm like, oh, he's heavy. That's like, okay, we got to work on weighing him down. He's come to camp under 175 before. And I'm like, dude, 72, 71. What's that? 2 camp, right. I'm like, man, what have you been doing? Like, you got to, you know, like, oh, I've been running a little bit, haven't been eating a whole lot. The big thing is, you know, he's not really a big eater. So he would come to camp sometime where he was very, very light. I'm like, dude, we got to put on some weight before we got to put the armor on your body before we go through a camp. So working with him was almost looking like multiple athletes. But yeah, so I have kind of a plan. I'll share it with you too, you know, off screen in terms of how I like to kind of periodize diet along with, you know, the training regimen. You know, ideally you have a 10, 12 week camp, right? Which doesn't always happen with a lot of fighters. They get last minute calls like, hey, I fight in 4 weeks. We got to get the weight down, whatever. Ideally in a high level guy like this, you got different phases of camp, right? You've got those first 3 or 4 weeks where if something like that comes in, I can build him up. I have some space and some time to work on getting him stronger, getting him a little bigger, building up that physical armor. And in that case, you know, I'm going to focus on his protein first. And then their carbs can be a little bit higher. We're not worried about kind of leaning them out just yet. And then just fat for recovery. And then as we progress further, that middle phase is going to be more like muscular endurance, but also he's going to be sparring. So recovery becomes a big part of it. And basically, as we get closer to fight night, I start shifting the carbs away from non-essential days. And what I consider essential days are sparring days.
Yeah.
When you're sparring, that's your performance, that's your tempo run for a runner, right? That's your performance activity. It's also where you're going to take the most damage. So I want my guy to be fully fueled as if it's fight day every sparring session. So if you got 3 sparring sessions a week, I'm fueling them up for that. And then as soon as you're done with that, recover slightly, and then we're going to cut our carbs down until we're getting ready to rev up for the next sparring session. That way we kind of have this undulating carb up for the high activity event or day or whatever. And then we're kind of going down in terms of carbs and maybe calories so we can trim off some of the excess fat, get the athlete as lean as possible while maintaining as much lean tissue as we can. And then the last is just, you know, fight week is basically just moving a little bit of water around so we can step on the scale, make the weight.
Yeah. So when you're going down from a high carb cycle to down, I'm sure you're increasing the fats.
Yes. So that's increasing the fat. It's fight week. It's not quite ketogenic. It's like a high protein ketogenic idea. Cause I don't really like cutting the protein on guys and going full keto, you know, like the week of, cause that's really, we're really cutting down the carbs at that point. But for the most part, even like during the camp, as we're just starting to whittle down the carbohydrates or whittle them down away from the high carb days, it's day to day. So it's not that noticeable. A lot of times what I would do, I was taking like cauliflower rice and mixing it with regular rice. So the athlete, a lot of times they don't even notice, you know, they're eating and they just, you know, they give them the plate. Most times
you were prepping his meals too.
Yes. Yeah. So that's something that was a little different, unique to me is that I can cook. 2, I like to cook. So, you know, and that was part of the gig that I had with Daniel. It was like, I was in camp with him and I actually prepared all the meals. So that was an experience as well. And it was cool because it was so hands-on for me. Like I said, like I could sneak in cauliflower rice into his white rice in a way that maybe he might not even notice.
Yeah.
You know, so cutting down those carbs, and that's a big part of it too. The psychology of dealing with an athlete. I don't got to tell you, you deal with so many people at this level. When it comes to nutrition and training, a lot of it is psychology. A lot of it is the mindset of what you're doing that day, what the ultimate goal is, and it's day to day.
Yeah, and I think a huge part of this, and you can contest to this, is really paying attention to your client, paying attention to their body. It's good to come in with goals, with plans. Everyone has like a certain objective to where they want to take nutrition, you know, whether they're a high carb person, high protein, high fat, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, you have to look at that person's body. The body is extremely unique and it can change on a day-to-day basis. And if you just stick to a process without leaving yourself that wiggle room to saying, you know what, today his body needs this. Today his body needs that. I think that's the key. I think you can agree to that, right?
1,000%. You know, there were certain days where, you know, we had a real hard week and I've been preparing all those meals and I just know he just wants to get out of the routine a little bit. I'm like,
Yeah.
hey Dana, let's go out to eat tonight.
Yeah.
You know, let's go to the steakhouse. Let's get this. Let's get some oysters. Let's get something you're not really used to having in camp. You know, maybe have a glass of wine, like, and we can get back to it because a lot of times psychologically that allows the athlete to just even or the person or the regular client, whatever. It's really important. That's like people say cheat days. I hate that word. I hate that idea. But I do think it is important to have kind of reset moments of a week and of a training cycle where you can kind of just be like, you know what, let me get lost in this right here.
Yep.
This good meal. I can eat this. I can relax. I can not have to think about that in my mind, and then I can get back to work. You know,
The word I use with my clients is exactly what you said. I use reset meal.
Perfect. Yeah.
I want to have a reset meal because it's like you said earlier. It's mental mostly. That's where it's coming from. Just to be able to say I'm going to go out and eat something that I haven't been eating, and you get more encouraged to then go back on that regimen after you've done that.
Sure.
And you were talking about the fact that you know how to cook. Something else that makes you pretty unique is you have a cookbook, right?
I do. Yes, I do. The Fighter's Kitchen. I probably got one of
Yes.
these around here somewhere.
And my goal was to actually get it. And I could tell you, I had plans to go out and buy it before our interview because I was going to breeze through it real quick and start talking about that. And then we got shuffled up, and then I just didn't get an opportunity to get it. But
I'll send you one. I'll write you a little sessage and send you one. You just got to send you your address.
Nice, absolutely, dude. That's awesome. So what inspired you outside of just liking to cook, which I also like to cook? What inspired you to say, I'm just going to put a cookbook together?
So this happened during the Pacquiao camp, honestly. So we were set up tremendous for that camp. I was living in the Palazzo Venetian in Las Vegas. I was doing my training camp there. Bob Aaron from Top Rank set me up. I mean, to the nines. I had my suites and a bunch of other suites for my team. And we had basically a gym that was built in a restaurant that was kind of gutted right downstairs. So I literally took an elevator straight down from pretty much my room right down to the gym. And we had a ring, we had bags, everything set up. And one of the big stipulations was like, guys, I need to be able to cook. But it was an old restaurant. So there was a full functional commercial kitchen attached to the gym. So I would do all my cooking in there. And I was with my manager at the time, Kevin Rooney Jr., son of Kevin Rooney, trained Mike Tyson from Catskills, and who's one of my best friends. And we're cooking. I'm making these meals, and I was posting on social media. And he's like, bro, you're like a chef. I'm like, nah, I like to cook, whatever. And I started posting a lot. Men's Health reached out. They heard about the story. They did something on that like that. And I started making a few meals that were coming together really nice. And Kevin Rooney was like, make this one, make that one. You're gonna make that, that meal again. And we were just like, yeah. So I'm like, I should probably start writing these things down.
Yeah.
Started writing them down. And then in training camp, there's a lot of downtime, like putting your feet up, resting, because recovery is everything. And a majority of your time is spent in that recovery mode. So I would be recovering my body, but I'd be on my computer writing down my recipes. And I had probably about 60 or 70 recipes down. And I'm like, man, I'm gonna make a cookbook one of these days. Kind of got away from it a little bit. And then one summer I got an email from a publisher, Penguin Random House. And they're like, hey, we got an idea for this book. We want you to author it. What do you think? And I was like, man, I'm already halfway there. So then we started talking like that. And then we went into it. I was completely blind to how difficult and how much work. It was a humbling amount of work. It was, I spent, from what year was this? 2018. I was there from August of 2018 till December. Every moment that I was not in a gym with my hands wrapped, sweating, I was on the computer, on a notepad, in the kitchen, just going back and forth, emailing back and forth with the publisher. Tremendous amount of work. Talking to the photographers, talking to the practice chefs, and then just marketing everything. But I'm really happy with it. I'm curious to see what you think when I send it to you.
Yeah.
I think it came out really good, and it's not just because it's mine.
Dude. Some of those meals I've checked out, man. I was telling a buddy, I was like, man, some of these meals are unbelievable. Like I have a log that I use for meals that I send to clients. and I took a few of the meals out of there. You had this one tuna and avocado meal
Yep.
that
Yep.
I saw that I really liked. Then there was another one with sweet potatoes. I can't remember exactly, but I took that one.
That's probably the sweet potato hash
Yes,
with
it
the
had
eggs
to
yeah,
be.
and the avocado. Yep.
Yep. Yeah,
Yep.
you big avocado guy, right?
Love avocados. Yeah,
Yeah.
monounsaturated fats, man. They're hard to get in the diet. They're really beneficial, especially for
Mhm.
inflammation and things like that. So
Yeah, and they taste. They feel like they have a lot of substance to them when you eat them too, which also
yeah,
helps.
absolutely, absolutely, and just they're a great item to cook with. And there's so many things it's versatile. It's a very versatile item to mix into foods, and I just love colors too. So and then nice bright green in there. I think it's makes a dish look good because that's part of it too.
Yeah.
Part of being a good cook is being an artist. So I
Oh
always
yeah,
got to
definitely.
think visually how it looks.
Yeah, I'll be watching TV. I watch a lot of Food Network. I'm sure you do too, if
I do, yeah.
you're a cook guy. And for my first judge on anything is how it looks.
Yep.
If it doesn't look good, it more than likely doesn't taste good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, the last thing I want to ask you is, so how's things been for you during this climate with COVID? I mean, how's your training been? Um, Speak to whatever degree that you want to, with respect to your future and what you're looking forward to.
Yeah. I mean, it's been difficult for everyone. I'm from New York, and we got hit really hard.
Yeah.
So, but I had kind of my ear to the ground about this thing and had a good idea. I was kind of following it back in late January, early February.
Mm.
I had an idea that there was something nasty out there, and I remember it hit out in Washington, and then as soon as it hit New York, I told my lady, I was like, we gotta get out of here. And we shot right down to Florida, and I was there for a
Which is also
while.
terrible.
Yeah, well, now it is. But
Yeah, yeah,
back then it was kind of open. It was open,
yeah,
and I had heard that the heat was good,
yeah,
to avoid it, and you're not outside and really close to people, and just being different. New York is so dense. So I
yeah.
was down there, and luckily, my condo that I have down there, I had some space to work out. It was all home. Like nothing was open even down there. There's no gyms, nowhere to work out. So I just literally was just like shadow boxing a ton, running a lot. My running game really stepped up. I've always been a good runner, but I was running a lot more than before. Obviously couldn't punch or really hit anything, didn't have any bags or anything like that at my condo, but just staying sharp with shadow boxing and things like that. And then kind of as New York got better, came back up there. And then since then, it's just kind of piecemealing it together. It's tough. I know like boxing is kind of starting again, and there's all these New York fighters who are getting flown to Vegas to fight. I'm like, I feel bad for these guys. I'm like, it's been really locked down here for a long time. So
Yeah.
none of these guys really have had proper camps. And, they're going out and they're fighting guys that maybe are from New Mexico or from Las Vegas or from different parts of California, where their camps are way more normal.
Yeah.
And they've been training for months. And there's a lot of really high-end camps where there's only a handful of guys. And it's the same guys every single day. And they're very tight-knit camps. They're usually high-level guys. So they've had a regular camp. They've been able to train pretty much regularly. They spar with each other. They're not bringing in any new people. There's no infection going back and forth. So I feel bad for a lot of the New York guys. And, if you're with myself, I said that I told my manager, I was like, I want to see how this all blows over a little bit before I really lock down a fight. Like I said, October is probably the earliest because I'm also seeing, I've been commentating for Top Rank's international feed. And so we called, we did 14 fights between, no, more than that. Yeah, we did 14 fights in June and July. And I've been calling them just like this. But we had guys fall out every fight. Multiple guys testing COVID positive at the weigh-in. Jamel Herring, another Long Island guy, has tested positive twice. He's a world champion.
Yeah, I read about that the other day, actually.
So I'm not going through camp, paying money, training full-time, going away, because I always go away to camp. I get out of New York, and then show up on fight day and, you got no fight.
Yeah.
It's at this stage of my career, that's not where I see. I'm not one of those guys anymore. So I'm an old head. I'm gonna wait around and see how everything kind of see how it falls, and then step right back in when the opportunity is right.
When it's safe, yeah. It's been tough, man. And I've been watching some of the fights that they have on ESPN.
Yep.
And it's just crazy because everything is weird right now. NBA, although they've been doing a great job apparently with this bubble idea, that's been well. But watching those boxing matches on ESPN, it's like stuff we've never seen before. Like you're watching like some really, really good fighters with no, no spectators,
No fans.
no fans, no, very limited on the press and stuff like that. And they're like modifying the sound to like give you the crowd noise and stuff like that. It's just, we're in a weird time right now, man.
That's big facts, man. Big facts. Like even with like us, like I'm calling these fights and I'm watching them on a video like this. I'm watching the same thing that the people at home are watching.
Yeah.
Normally, I'm literally I can grab their boot, from where I'm commentating, which is so important because you can see and you can hear, and then in between rounds, I can talk to the I can hear the corner. And sometimes I can talk to them. Like I'm in one corner. Normally I can be like, looking good. How's he looking? Whatever. How's he feeling? And I can bring that into the telecast, but now that's not an option. I'm seeing exactly what you guys are seeing at home. So we don't have that insight like we normally do.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Just little things that we take for granted.
Yeah, that's the story of this whole thing.
Yeah, Chris, the last question, man. I find you to be a very dynamic person. Not just an athlete. Where do you see yourself once you're done with boxing? Because I feel like there's many directions you can go just with your, your knowledge on nutrition, your education on boxing itself, the fact that you're in commentary now. I got a great idea that you understand the business part of what you do. What's your next steps for you after boxing?
Yeah, first of all, I love commentating. It keeps me involved in the sport, and especially now since I know so many of these fighters. I'm commentating on guys I sparred with. I'm commentating on guys I fought. I've commentated on guys that we punch each other in the face. So like having that insight, I think, is really cool to share with the audiences. I also am such a fan of the sport, so that's definitely going to be in my future. And there's a lot of opportunities for that in that realm, in that space. But I mean, health and fitness, man, nutrition, health, fitness, training, performance. That's my passion. Like I love that stuff. I read textbooks on that stuff and get excited, so for me, I definitely see myself in that space. I do want to do more of like what you're doing and sharing with more people and sharing with in general population, athletes, whatever. Because I think there's a lot of good that can be done because there is a lot of misinformation. There is a lot of anti-science out there about these kind of things. So I think there's definitely room for me to kind of do something big in that space. But books too. Definitely writing books. I'm working on another book right now. I'm waiting on the contract, so I'm not going to say what it is or what it's about. It is not a cookbook. I didn't see myself. I knew I was going to do a cookbook. I always knew I was going to write books. I was going to be an author, but didn't think cookbook was going to be my first. So now I've got something that's a little more of what I originally thought, the kind of title and topic that I would cover. But I was kind of enamored by that process of even doing the cookbook, which is going to be way easier than this next project. It's like a fight. It's like training for a fight. I mean, I'm locked in. And it's my whole world. So, and at the end of it, you have something. You have a product. Like every fight's a product. I can look back at that product and be like, I'm proud of that. Or I can look back at that and be like, I was shit that day.
Yeah.
that didn't come out the way I wanted it to. Yeah. Same thing with the book. Like I'm very happy that my first publication was something I'm very proud of. Hopefully they're all like that, but it's how much work you put into anything, and you want to be proud of whatever the work is.
Yeah. And I'm sure the more and more you do it, the more experience, more comfortable you'll get with it, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, just reaching out to, I have access to so many great people and so many smart people. I'm really blessed in that way. I hate saying that I'm blessed, but like I'm really, really lucky and really, I hate that word too. I'll go back to blessed. I'm really blessed that I have access to so many incredible people and minds and the kind of people that you want to be surrounded by. So reaching out to them for help. And that's really what it's all about, being able to have, the unity of the people around you to help you progress.
Yeah.